Okay, welcome along everyone to today's breakout session entitled Climate Emergency Practical Applications. Our speakers today are Teresa Bray, who you might have seen earlier on, the Chief Executive of Changeworks, and Waheed Khan from the Inverness Mosque. The format is that we'll have presentations from both our speakers, and then we'll look to get questions from yourselves. So at this point, we'll invite you to come on screen to post your questions, and then you would simply request to share your audio and your video, and you may be brought on screen. But for those of you who don't want to come on screen, you can still get involved by posting the questions in the chat box at the side, and we will try to fit them in before the session ends. Just to let you know that the session is being recorded, so if you don't want to be recorded, don't request to share your audio and video, but you can participate through the session chat box. So just to kick things off, then I'll hand us over to Teresa. Is that okay?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you. This part of the conference, I'm going to be talking about what Changeworks as an organisation has done to reduce our carbon footprint, sort of very much on the practical side of things. I've got a few slides that I'm going to be sharing, but look forward to questions later on, and it'd be nice to see some of you actually asking them live. So, okay, let's go to presentation mode. So we're looking at the practical solutions. Changeworks does it very important to actually reduce our carbon footprint. And each year we analyse where our carbon footprint comes from, looking for a whole suite of different areas that it comes. As you can see, it's the spread from sort of heating our building and gas, the electricity we use, but our big area of energy use is actually fuel for our vehicles, business travel we have, and commuting. We do cover all of Scotland, particularly the Highlands and Islands, which does actually contribute a large amount to our carbon footprint. So we estimated what each year what our carbon footprint was, and we'd made ourselves a target to we want to be net zero by 2040 as any organisation, but we're taking active steps to try and reduce our carbon footprint as much as possible. So having taken a look at our overall carbon footprint, we then sort of delve down to see what are the different aspects coming from our footprint. We've got a number of offices, and then in our main office we use renewable energy. A lot of our offices which we'd inherited other people's tariffs, we weren't using energy, so we looked to change that. One of our major areas of use was from our control of heating, and what we found, like many organisations, we rent our offices, we don't own it. It's rather a leaky old building, but there's always this fight when you're doing your heating to see who. Some people like the heating much higher than others. There's some very cold people and there's some warm people as well. But by analysing it, we were able to find out we were turning our heating on too early, and that we'd have some warm days in the spring, we'd still have the heating on, but some colder days in the autumn, we wouldn't have started the heating. Obviously, this was last year. We're now not in our office at the moment, but it was doing that. We also, because we do a lot of travel, we had quite a number of cars. We weren't using our fleet as effectively we might do, and we had a small number of staff with high emissions commuting. So we actually looked to see what the story was behind our carbon emissions, and carbon often means cost as well. We then looked to see, started taking some actual real steps. Our phase one was in Edinburgh, where we have had about 12 cars. By moving our fleet away from, we often had very short-term rentals for our cars, and what we've done is we've moved to longer-term rentals, and wherever possible, we now have electric cars, which are the minimum your fuel that you use for them is very low charge compared to petrol or diesel. Or if people are doing longer journeys, we've got hybrids, but we make very significant savings in our carbon. But it's very important to us as an organisation, we look to save £34,000 by just changing our leases and taking advantage of the funding that's available for electric cars. Second phase was looking in Inverness, where we've got a slightly smaller staff clientele, but again made big savings in carbon, but even bigger, but also savings in the costs as well. And this led to a 15% reduction in our carbon emissions. The other area we had was our heating controls. What we did was we actually decided to put some extra insulation in the loft, but invest in our heating controls, which is, many of you who know from your home, you don't actually use your heating controls very effectively. We had much worse heating controls in our offices compared to most people in our homes, but we had something similar to, you may have a hive at your home, which allows you to control different areas, set the temperatures at different times. And we engaged in staff about what was an acceptable temperature to have. Initial savings, we actually cut our fuel bill by 22%, just by making sure that we have staff who come in on weekends. We only heated the room they were in, changed our start time and finish time of our heating. It was a bit expensive looking at our heating bills, but we looked to have a 5-year payback on that, which is well within the terms of our lease. So we did make real savings there on the heating. And then we're looking at sort of the further actions we've had by actually spending some time on looking at our carbon emissions. They started taking it more seriously. All our offices moved to renewable electricity. And with the COVID emergency, we'd already started reviewing our approach to home working, and we're going to take that as a bigger step to actually think what will work practically. Do we necessarily need to have such a big office? For those staff who are working home, do we just get them coming in once a week, save the commuting? But though they might be saving on their commuting, we've got to recognise our staff are going to be having to heating their homes over the winter. And we're looking at rolling out sort of energy efficiency packages to the staff at home. So we do have a lot of young staff who are living in rather drafty flats with private sector landlords, and though we can give advice to them, sort of there are some temporary measures we're putting in. But where staff live in their own homes, we've already encouraged them to make steps, but taking a positive approach. So we're very much taking practical attitudes and saving both reductions in carbon and in costs as well. So that was very much taking an internal look at it, our energy. Hopefully I've stopped sharing, so that should come through in a minute. Yep. Okay, so that's a brief introduction about the practical steps we took to reduce our energy emissions. Okay, thank you, Alex.
Okay, thanks very much then, Teresa. Waheed, can I ask you to begin your presentation then?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Waheed. Inverness is a small town, and Muslim community is around 1% of the total population. So we are still under 1,000 in the Highlands. We've been managing a mosque for the last many years, and then when we looked into buying a purpose-built mosque, we come across some of the buildings which were up for sale, and this building which was up for sale, and I asked the owner why they're selling it, and they said they cannot afford the heating bills of this building, and that was a lesson for us to not to buy it and move on and look for. So we bought in about 2014-15, we bought a Portland club, which was a Rangers football club kind of venue for Inverness games. The building was in a bad state of repair, and after discussion with Keep Scotland Beautiful and doing a few seminars on energy efficiency and carbon neutrality, we tried to upgrade the whole building with insulation, with special emphasis to the walls, floors. We invested in skylights, which were properly triple glazed, brought lots of light and sunshine also to a very dark building otherwise. So when we bought the building, the energy EPC rating was in a rock bottom G, and when we finished our work, the rating has improved to a higher C at that time. And then we start discussion with a few organizations about solar panel, and we put a wood burning stove, and that was one of the best things we had actually. A lot of community members who own restaurants, they take away and various businesses, they were empowered with the ideology of improving the buildings to insulation level, investing in things like wood burning stoves, and we are lucky in the Highland because of the availability of firewood availability, and a lot of community members had gardens or spare wood in their sheds which they brought in. So just before the lockdown started on the 13th of March, which was the last day for the FIT pre-registration date as well, we put the solar panels, which was about 6.4 kilowatt, with a hybrid controller with the potential to have storage batteries later on. And we just finished the application to put in storage batteries of 10.5 kilowatt just even yesterday for installation to our local installer, which is AE Solar. We had constant discussion with CARES and other providers on this issue, and the best thing for us was that most of our community who visits the mosque almost 5 times a day, lots of women and children who visits the mosque. Of course, that was before COVID. They can see the changes appearing gradually, slowly, and they took empowerment through the work, and also we kept them informed, so they were on board. Most of the money came from them anyway, so they were interested in where the money is going. So at the moment, we have a building which is fairly very well insulated. It's open 24 hours. It's got a solar panel, and we received our first FIT repayment just this week to our bank accounts, and we are putting in the storage batteries hopefully, and going for later on going for the water rainwater collection system. Through the same discussion, we because of our members, most of the members work in the Indian food industry. We talked about food wastage, reuse of the food material, and things like that. And also, we have empowered the community onto tackling gardening, growing local initiatives. So overall, it's been a very positive experience for us, for our community in the Highland, and we're looking forward to getting more progress on this issue. I'll stop here.
That's great, Waheed. Thanks very much for that. Anyone get any questions that they would like to come on with? What I'll do is that I'll see in the comments that there's one actually from our chief exec when you were talking about the food there, and quite a few of your members working in the food industry. As Ian was saying there, one of the environmental measures that we've taken at CIS is we took a decision to only have vegetable and fish for our catering, and it was not straightforward, and it certainly elicited strong feelings. I can vouch for that. I was part of those. And it's Ian saying there, it led him to think about the balance of persuasion to stealth with firm decisions and rule settings. Have you got any thoughts on that, Waheed? Maybe begin with yourself on that.
Yeah, most of our community members have restaurants, and we did talk to them about, and we had external speakers as well as our own speakers, and we reduced the wastage which was happening. We directed a lot of the food which was left over to charitable causes, like to homeless and other venues, and that is getting momentum. I'm not sure about the illicit strong feelings and.
So it seems as if everyone in your congregation, in your community, we were aligned really with what you were trying to do. So there wasn't really any need to try and convince them more about coming along with that.
Well, it was making strong sense because most of it was saving money to them and to. And I think saving money is a big equation here, because I've spoken to a lot of other mosques down south and local church groups, And one of the major things they complain about is the heating bills for the premises. And unfortunately, most of these buildings are in shared ownership or not in the community ownership. So sometimes they cannot do drastic measures to, and most of them are open holes for loss of energy. And I think no matter how much energy you put in, it will be lost because the building is old and not secured. Um, we were fortunate to tackle these because we were a small community, and we took people on board. And one of the biggest winner for us was the empowerment through our religion. Some of the verses in Quran was quite strong in kind of about wasting, about preserving the energy, and saving the environment, and that was the bigger goal we achieved.
Excellent. Teresa, can I bring you maybe on that point about, the balance of persuasion and stealth with firm decisions? I take it you've maybe encountered that within your time. Sorry, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, within Changeworks a couple of years ago, sort of our green team were very keen for us to adopt vegetarian only food, but they probably went out a bit heavy-handed, and they started saying, well, we should, for our Christmas dinner, we should go all vegetarian, which then said people, because they were wanting to still have the traditional Christmas dinner, rather than saying, well, for our main catering, which is actually a higher proportion of our food, let's not go for the iconic events such as Christmas dinner, but for the catering. So though we had tried a consultation, that hadn't worked, because mainly they were talking about the Christmas dinner rather than main catering when we have staff events or catering for meetings, etc. People were still wanting. We decided to go down the route that where staff are contributing, such as for the Christmas dinner or for big events, we would still have meat there. But for any meetings, etc., where Changeworks pays during the day, that we have only vegetarian and half vegetarian, half vegan, so that you can meet all the requirements. So it's sometimes it is difficult to take people along, but I think it's try to avoid the most areas you're going to get most conflict. It's not a good idea. But I don't think we're going to be getting our Christmas dinner this year, so that's going to be a bit disappointing.
From Ian's comments, he didn't go as far as Christmas dinner, and I can vouch for that one. Yeah. But certainly the thing is that before lockdown, I'm one of the business advisors in CEIS, and I'm involved in delivering a lot of workshops, not just on the premises, but obviously in different settings throughout the country. And we've tried to make sure that when we present a lunch at these workshops, that it was a vegetarian, vegan choices that were there, rather than kind of meat choices.
Yeah, I think with any of these sorts of activities, and whenever you're doing community tours, if you're trying to force your view onto people, it never works. You've got to sort of explain things, and obviously we don't have much time in tackling the climate emergency, but you don't want to you want to take people with you rather than sort of upsetting people. And often if you can create solutions, it makes a big difference. But food is certainly one of the big issues, both because of food wastage and also because of the dairy industry being such a high polluter. So it is one of the issues. And you have to look at the holistic area, sort of that. When we were, it's one of the reasons why I did quite a lot of analysis to see where our costs were, where our fee was, because people do get concerned about areas. One of the concerns, say, was on electric vehicles. We had a lot of people worrying about whether they'd be able to get there and get back. So we found sort of that we had to provide a lot of information for staff and let them trial driving an electric car. I don't know if many of you have driven an electric car, but they're really good to drive. The acceleration is great, and they're so quiet. And once people started driving an electric car, it makes a big difference. Recently, well, several months ago when I was in Inverness, I was getting a taxi back down to the station. It was an electric taxi, and the taxi driver just was raving about how much better it was for him driving an electric car compared to a normal car. And he found, because he was saving so much on the fuel costs, because there was very good deals then, there still is for the taxi drivers, that he was very pleased to be driving an electric car and wasn't worried about the range at all.
But do you think that it was a problem with your staff, maybe because of the rural nature of where you're situated? Whereas maybe if it was in Glasgow or Edinburgh, that it's more urban setting, there might be more charging points for people.
Yeah, well, it's majority of our staff are actually in Edinburgh, but yes, it was in urban areas, and we did do, as one of our projects, we did do the though there are contentious, of course, the North Coast 500 up in going around the north of Scotland. There can be challenges in points, but the part of the whole of the UK with the highest number of charging points is actually Dundee. And
Right.
yeah, a lot of local authorities have really changed about how many charging points there are.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's good, isn't it? That's encouraging, certainly. So it seems as if Dundee Council was maybe a wee bit more forward thinking than a lot of the other councils in Scotland.
Yep.
On that respect, anyway. Yeah.
Yep.
It's funny. My brother's got a hybrid car, and he fully charged his vehicle one time. He was coming to pick me up. We were going somewhere, and he works over in Cambuslang. I stay in Mount Vernon, the east side of Glasgow, and we were driving up to Arbroath for a family function, and the charge ran out and overrode to petrol at Cambuslang. So it was only giving him 25, 28 miles on his full charge.
Yeah.
But Ian's also making the other point about take motoring. It is cheaper and quicker to travel across Scotland by car than public transport. The incentives seem to be all wrong. So sometimes the regulation and the taxation may be a solution to that.
Huh.
Yeah. And then, so we've got. Oh, sorry. Do you want to answer that one, Teresa?
I think there is a need for regulation and taxation as well, and that some of the difficulties with taxation is that, say, the road tax has changed a lot, and we need consistency of long-term policies as well, which is some of those areas are not devolved, so it is more challenging as well.
And then there's another question come in from Michael Cook. A question for you, Teresa. What would you recommend for an organisation want to carry out a carbon footprint audit? Is there an affordable way to do this?
Oh, well, we just do it ourselves. I can look for a link to find out sort of that there are the figures provided, and it's actually not a lot of information comes from your finance system. So if you want to know how to do it, I'll try and find a link to put up for it. Sort of but yes, you can get it from your utility bills and what your mileage is. So it's not necessary to pay it for anybody else to do it. I think organisations can do it themselves.
That'd be good. Certainly, I think Michael would be appreciative of that.
Yep.
Good stuff. Waheed, something that I was wanting to say about, it was interesting you were saying that you got in wood burning stoves, and that kind of cut down your emissions again. My brother works in the building industry, and they were moving to a brand new purpose-built office, and he managed to get grants to build in a wood chipping heating system. And because they're with the industry, they're clearing a lot of sites. So they were actually getting the wood from a lot of the sites and using that to heat their premises. So it's certainly not just groups like yourself, it's actually private businesses looking to these solutions as well.
Yeah, I think the wood burning stove is quite good because you burn it when the maximum number of people are there, so it becomes a source of joy and fun. And I've not seen anybody not enjoying a warm fire in cold winter here. And also, we have a lot of young people. We empowered them to actually bring wood to the mosque. Many of them had cut trees in their houses, or they had some sheds to clear. So we end up. Luckily, we were fortunate to have two big sheds, which and one of them still have a lot of wood to burn. And the only thing is that who starts the fire is always. But when the fire is going, there's plenty, and it's a lot of fun actually. And also, as one of the speakers was I think Teresa was talking about the timer when it's very cold or when it's very warm. We are not sensitive to kind of the regulation so much, but wood burning is a good way of regulating that, because it's on demand, and you put more wood if it's more cold, or you put less wood if it's less cold. And I think it definitely saves money in the long run.
Excellent. That's good, getting the community involved in that, and especially getting youngsters involved. There may be a problem maybe in the urban areas where they might have to take the focus away from the bonfire nights and have it more for all year round for heating offices and premises. Yeah.
Sure.
So anyone else got any questions that they'd like to ask? Or Teresa or Waheed, do you have any other points that you would like to make, or just with the way that the conversation's going?
I think as far as this journey for us is concerned, you need sometimes quite good information, and sometimes there's lack of information to communities. We go to different venues and we're still told, oh, you can have solar panel, you can have air heat source pump, but you still will paying a lot of bills to the gas, because we cannot get rid of the gas and electric. And so sometimes I think people don't invest in multiple. So I would say sometimes getting a proper advice and a proper recommendation is difficult for communities to where to begin, and especially around insulation for building which are not owned by people or communities. And I see people struggle there a lot. So they have no choice but to keep using the old boiler and the old gas and
And do you think that's a problem because there are all the big players, if you like, are bombarding people with the information and trying to seek out, that difference of opinion and how things are changing or maybe not being heard? Do you maybe have to seek it out yourself rather than the information being readily available?
Yeah, sometimes, like I think there's a lot of information for the last couple of days are coming on air source heat pumps, and I was questioning somebody, and they said, I think there's a lot of money put in by government towards that. And Teresa said that I think in I don't know which year we will not use gas as a heating source in UK. So more alternatives are going to be. So I think if the advice is clear and achievable by two people living in a small cottage or multiple or a small school which using lots of heating and the bills are high. So sometimes I think a very tailored advice to that community will help.
Yeah.
Certainly I've just put up the link for organisations to be able to get free advice for Zero Waste Scotland. I'll put it for the individuals for Home Energy Scotland. Just responding to Helen's comment about what we do with our waste. Changeworks has a joint venture, Changeworks Recycling, which is it's a Central Belt business recycling service, and there we look for, we're aiming for sort of 90% recycling. The remaining general waste that actually is first goes to be mechanically sorted to extract. Often there are still bits that are recyclable, but then it goes to energy from waste, so you're capturing that. But I think the big thing you try to do is first of all reduce the waste. I think one of the interesting things about the COVID, whilst everybody's worked at home, is we've produced far less waste because we've stopped printing, because none of us have printers. Sort of, you have to email everybody. Yes, there a very small number of people. Sort of on some of our services, we do still have to print things out, but yeah, we've got away with not printing anything for months. So when we start going back to the offices, why should we start having waste associated with that?
Yeah. We've also got the comment from Josiah there. He says, have we talked about efficient use of offices and home working to maximise the carbon reduction, limiting office work and commuting for work that can't be done at home, and or scheduling meetings to minimise use of lighting and energy?
Yeah, I'd really like to get people's thought about whether how much we should be moving to not working working at home from all the time. It's a difficult balance. The trouble is, we've got our offices open for a very small number of people who just sometimes they to have access to our servers and the like, but it's also some people's homes just don't allow them to work from home because they're very crowded. It's they might be sharing with other people and it's just not working, and sort of odd building work. So we are now heating our offices, and we're going to be heating our homes. Yes, we're saving on the carbon emissions from travel, but we've got lots of trains going back and forth empty, lots of buses going forth back and empty. Yes, there's some cars, and we had a very young workforce who tend to walk to work or cycle to work, so they're using energy at home. So yes, there have been some savings in emissions, and people who drive a long way to work, there've definitely been advantages, but there can be disadvantages as well. But I don't know if some of the people, I don't know if does Joshua actually want to come in and make a few comments. Can you bring him in, Alex? Does he be happy to come in?
Josiah, you want to come in? I'll bring you in then. Yeah. If you just hold on, you should be coming in a wee minute. There we go. Hi, Josiah.
Hi. I just put a jumper on from this morning. Yeah, so I mean, it's a really interesting debate on the office space, because we're going to have lots of offices presumably in the near future with where we have to change the work. I think the point I was trying to make was it's work that can't be done at home, because I think there is both people who have homes that aren't suitable to working from home. There's also activity that just isn't organized to working from home, but there are a lot of people who are completely rethinking how the office should be done and what does. I know Indy, who was here this morning, has done a lot of work around what the future of the office looks like and how to make that more efficient. But that's even like, if you're using the office, make it the morning or a time of the day where you don't have to heat it or use lighting as much as you would if you work in Scotland. That gets smaller and smaller as the year goes on. But like there are more creative ways that we can use offices for carbon. I think the same thing would be the earlier conversation around how we travel to places, because Scotland is quite difficult to get to places on public transport. If we can organize where our staff go, what regions of the country they cover, scheduling meetings to minimize as much use of cars as we need to, then that's good as well.
Yeah. I think the point you made about some tasks need to be still carried out in the office, certainly ourselves at CEIS, it seems as if anyone that's running the payroll has to come in and actually use the office to run the payroll rather than being able to do that remotely. So there are certain tasks that are vitally important getting paid.
That's quite an easy one to fix, though.
Yeah, that has to be done.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we had this interesting debate when we were talking about going back to the office around people were saying, well, what do we do if we go back to be on Zoom calls? Have to have headphones and boots. It's like, well, why are you going into the office to have a Zoom call? I think there was questions around that. It's quite easy to do that from your home.
Yeah.
But I think it's a conversation that we're being forced into. Whether or not we wanted to, and we probably have an opportunity now to steer it in a certain direction, rather than just doing it because we want to save money on offices.
Yeah, I think so. Thanks very much, Josiah. I think that's us about finished. Is that okay if we just wrap it up here? Yeah. Can I say thank you very much to Teresa and Waheed for their contributions, and I hope you enjoyed everything. And we're just a reminder that we're going back over to the main stage for the closing remarks from the conference. So thanks again, Teresa and Waheed. Thank you.